I want to talk here about how to maintain the tree, and specifically right at planting and kind of in that first year. The most important maintenance thing by far is watering. You want to make sure you are able to water your tree if possible. If for some reason you're not going to be able to water very much or for very long, other than maybe for the first little while, you want to make sure to go with a tree that can handle drought, probably a smaller tree, because that can more easily, it's going to get established more quickly. But really, even if you can just water for the first couple months, it's really important to have water there. You also want to, especially if you can't water, you want to not plant anything under the tree for that first year. If I'm watering regularly, I don't mind planting an understory of something. But if you can't water as much, you want to not plant anything. You want to control the weeds for sure. And either way, you definitely want to keep the grass away from the root zone, which is one of the reasons why we established this nice dugout area with mulch, because grasses really compete with trees. A grass can decrease a tree's growth by as much as 50% for a young tree if the grass is right up to the trunk. So that's one of the reasons why we do that root zone. What else? So watering is really important. Interestingly, if you're in a colder climate, you have to be prepared to water a little bit longer, just because, as I was saying before, that root system takes longer to establish in a cold climate. So really, you might have to prepare to water properly, well for a good year. Whereas in a warm climate, maybe 3 to 6 months, that tree is going to be more established. Doesn't mean you stop watering, but just it's not as big of an issue. For watering, it might be 2-3 times a week right when you plant it. And throughout that first year, it totally depends on the climate, so I can't really tell you. Depends on your soil, all that stuff that we talk about when we talk about watering. But it might end up being more like, every week or two eventually. And then eventually the tree will largely take care of itself. So, after a year or two, you don't hardly have to water unless you're going through a drought. Pruning, there's no real need to prune a tree. Some people think you need to prune a tree when you plant it to balance out the canopy with the root system. It's not the case. We want to leave the leaves up there so that they can photosynthesize to help grow that root system back to the way it should be. All I would do is prune out any dead or damaged wood, which I'll do kind of quickly right now. Or any wood that looks like it's going to cause a problem. So if you have branches if you have a co-dominant trunk, or branches that look like they're going to be rubbing, all the kind of stuff that I'll talk about once I talk about pruning. But there's no need other than that to do pruning to balance anything out. I guess I can do the rest of that off camera. What else do I want to talk about? Wrapping. There's no need to wrap the trunk in anything like this. Some people think that you want to prevent sun scald from, the hot sun, the southwest comes in, and sometimes it can kind of cause problems with the trunk, but usually that's a lack of moisture, and so the trunk kind of burns or scalds. Really, it's usually a moisture problem. So you don't need this for anything to protect the trunk. If you have rodents, you might benefit from something like this that first year. Cut a slit in it all the way down so that you can wrap that around the trunk, and that might discourage rodents. I wouldn't go and do it unless you find that rodents are already a problem in your garden, or if you notice they are, then you can go and do that. Other than that, for fertilizing, it's the same kind of stuff I do in the rest of my garden. Whenever I'm spraying a foliar fertilizer of kelp and sea minerals and fish and microbial inoculants, I'll spray it onto the foliage of my young trees and over the root system. I've already improved the soil with compost and rock dust, so I don't have to do any more fertilizing. It's more biostimulants and microbial inoculants. I definitely want to keep a solid mulch on there 12 months of the year. I don't have to do any more mycorrhizal fungi. I did that at planting, and they should be there now as long as I'm treating them well. And I think that's all for maintenance. There's no need to prune. There shouldn't really be much need to prune a tree throughout its life if you've planted the right tree in the right place. Occasionally if a branch dies, then fine, you can prune that out. but there's no need to shape the canopy, air out the canopy. You can do just very basic fertilizing. If you staked it, you want to remove that after 6 to 12 months. And other than that, it's just watering and mulching and same kind of stuff we do in our regular gardens. So that's maintenance for trees.